initially, the gas companies, the blenders, that were using a chemical that sounds better if you call it MTBE. That was all fine and good. It was relatively inexpensive. It was an oxygenate so that they can meet the requirement. The problem was it's very, hydrophilic? It likes water. And if it gets into the ground, it stays in the ground. And it stays in the groundwater and it contaminates it for a very long time. And it's extremely expensive to clean up. And then so that in 1996, the city of Santa Monica learned that 2 of its drinking water well fields, Charnock and Acadia, were contaminated with MTBE at levels as high as 610 parts per billion and 86 parts per billion, respectively, which was obviously 610. That sounds like a big number, but even 83 was orders of magnitude higher than the legal limit. And so I think that if you look at the data over time, that really is the break. This is suddenly MTBE is no longer able to you can't use it anymore because these gas tanks are leaky. All over the country, there are old gas tanks that are leaking into the ground, and we don't want, the petrochemical industry doesn't want to be sued, so they switched to ethanol. This was in 1996. In 1996, there's not a lot of ethanol being produced. So the price of ethanol becomes really cost prohibitive. So how do we get more ethanol to be produced? Well, we asked the government to mandate that ethanol be produced. So here is where the oil companies start to switch from MTBE or the blenders, I should say, switch to MTBE to ethanol. And so we see this sort of discontinuous jump early on, which is swamped by the jump after the government mandate.
I got another question.
Yeah.
Doesn't the government subsidize ethanol? I know they mandate it, but they also subsidize it.
Yeah, they used to.
Okay. Did they stop that?
No, they didn't stop then. They just stopped in 2011, I think. Recently, they just stopped. But yeah, they had been subsidizing it. Even at this time, it was still being subsidized. Yeah. And at this time, sort of the demand went up, so the price went up. But I think, anyway, let me show you the picture real quick. So this is just a bigger view of that little picture that I just showed you. So the blue line is the ethanol production capacity over time. Vertical is, I think this is millions of gallons per year. And then the yellow bars are the number of ethanol facilities, and they're measured on the right. You can see that right around here is where the graph that I just showed you, so there's a little bit of a bump up in the demand for ethanol, but the supply is relatively constrained. The price increase is really causing more ethanol plants to be built, right? It becomes profitable to sell ethanol. Then in 2003, you see a big jump, and then I can't see from here, this angle. 2005, you see a big jump, 2006, 2007. You see these massive jumps right at the time that the government implemented the mandate to produce the ethanol be blended up to 10% of gasoline. So how did this market get going? I mean, today, and I think this stops at 2010. You can see at least on the yellow bars that the construction has evened out. So we're past the big rush. In fact, not sort of, we have saturated the market. We're up against the blend wall, so there's no place to put any extra ethanol. So the ethanol market exists, and it's thick with suppliers, in part, I think maybe a lot, because the government mandated that it exists. So I think that's one thing that we should take from this. One thing we should take from this market. Yeah, Hannah?
Using that as an example for what's happening with the pots or whatever, is it as difficult to retool the current pot manufacturing industry as it was to, completely change, ethanol production plants or, create those?
That's a great question.
Because
I have no idea.
What you're saying is that, okay, the government mandated it, and then that made it economical for these people to
Mhm.
Well, the guy that could have answered that best went out that door for some
Yeah.
reason, but our goal is to get most of these materials so that they'll work on existing machines.
Yeah, so it should be an easier, a less cautionary tale, I guess.
Perhaps it's not just the manufacturing; it's the materials as well. But
Okay.
perhaps
Because
less
the
cautionary.
limitation here was that
That-
there wasn't the plants or the facilities to,
Yeah.
we had to.
Yeah, yeah. So cup half full. Very optimistic. Okay, just more to let me just illustrate how dramatic, in yet another way, how dramatic the change in ethanol production capacity was. This is in 1996, so about the same time that they stopped using MTBE. Each of these blue dots, so this is a map of the Midwest, in case it's not recognizable. Each blue dot is the location of an ethanol production facility, and the size of the dot indicates sort of the relative amount that's being produced. And you can see there are a few in the Midwest. In 1996, if we jump forward 12 years, we can see there was a big expansion. Right? So the market grew. It grew very, very quickly. Now, we don't know what the world would have been otherwise. The market may have grown this big anyway. My gut feeling is it may have taken longer than it did take, but we'll never know. But indeed, of a government mandate, the ethanol industry exploded.
Was that region affected like that just because of that location, or was it nationwide?
No, it was just here, and it was because it's expensive to haul corn around. Corn is heavy, and so they had to build the ethanol plant next to the corn so they could turn it into ethanol. Yeah, so it really just happened in the Midwest, and as you can see in the upper Midwest. Okay. Okay, so a cautionary or less cautionary tale from the ethanol industry. Another government-mandated program that is still under evaluation to see whether or not it works. It's been on again. It's been in play since 2008. It's called the Biomass Crop Assistance Program, and the program is well, I think I have details. It was established by the 2008 Farm Bill, and the idea is that I thought I had this in here. Oh, too many rules here. The idea is that it pays the producer to produce biomass, and that biomass is then harvested, hauled to an energy generating facility, and burned to produce energy. And there's a substantial, I think it's at least 100% subsidy to the producer in order to do that. So there's a tremendous incentive. It's a smallish it's a small program, and it's only implemented in certain areas that are approved. And within those areas, however, both the producer of the biomass and the consumer, the power generator, both receive a subsidy. And this next, far too many details about how much the subsidy was, but it's, believe it or not, it's big. And these slides will be up to look at it later. There's really the details that, here is the illustration of the first area of the country that was qualified for this BCAP program. So this is Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and this set of counties, if you were in one of those, then you could qualify. The biomass, it couldn't just be anything. It couldn't just be, trees or what have you. Miscanthus, switchgrass, there's a fairly limited list of what things you can plant, and but the subsidy to do that is quite substantial. So it's still in the early phases. The idea is that once cellulosic technology comes through, they need to have sort of a feedstock so that we can start getting cellulosic liquid fuel going, and this is a way to jumpstart that market, that supply chain, by getting them to produce the feedstock, get it established, and in the meantime, just burn it for energy.